From witnessing orgies as a young girl to flirting with presidents as an established singer, Aretha Franklin's sex life is the type of story that is rejected at movie studios for being too unrealistic. But unfortunately for her, a tell-all biography she never wanted to come out spilled all the secrets of her dark and tumultuous past. This is the untold sex life of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Aretha Franklin's parents moved from Memphis, Tennessee to Detroit, Michigan in the hopes of making a better life for themselves. They were part of a mid-century trend in which numerous Black Americans moved from the South to the urban city of Detroit in search of greener pastures. On arrival, Aretha's dad, C.L. Franklin, set up a church. However, it was a church unlike anybody had seen before, serving as a front for wild parties, riotous orgies, and lots of gay sex. When legendary musician Ray Charles, who was quite the wildcat himself, witnessed what happened at the church of C.L. Franklin, he was shocked. Unlike other places of worship, this one was committed entirely to celebrating the pleasures of the flesh. Aretha's mum, Barbara Siggers, tried her best, but she could not shield her daughter from the sheer depravity of what happened in the four walls of that building. As a prepubescent girl, Aretha's mind was tainted beyond measure, giving her an early sexual awakening. Like the adults around her, Aretha had no conception of moderation or self-control. All she knew was excess and gluttony. This was something that haunted her throughout her whole life. As a matter of fact, did you know she first got pregnant at the tender age of 12? This was a huge scandal in Aretha's neighborhood, pointing fingers in the most unlikely of places. It was the kind of story too crazy to believe. When word broke out that little Aretha was pregnant, almost everybody said that her father C.L. Franklin was responsible. His reputation preceded him in such a sad and pathetic fashion. As it turned out, he was not the one responsible. Instead, the father of Aretha's baby was a kid known as Donald Burke, whom she knew from school. Some members of the community never believed that Donald was the father of the baby, especially when Aretha named it Clarence, which was her father's name. Such a fine reputation for a pastor to have that everyone so easily believes he impregnated his own daughter. Well, if you think this pregnancy served as a wake-up call for either Aretha or her guardians, you'd be dead wrong. Before Aretha Franklin turned 15 years old, she got pregnant with her second child. This time, the father was a guy named Edward Jordan, who Aretha's brother described as a player. Before Aretha's Sweet 16, she had seen more of motherhood than some women do their entire lives, but that didn't slow down her sexual appetite one bit. As a matter of fact, the more Aretha matured, the more sexually liberated she got. Because of the wild environment she grew up in, she was driven into the arms of several lovers. Finally, Aretha's mother, Barbara, decided she had seen enough of Detroit and returned to Memphis. This broke Aretha's heart in such a terrible way. While Aretha's sisters, Irma and Carolyn, recovered from their mother's abandonment quite quickly, Aretha just couldn't handle it. She dropped out of high school, further destructuring her life. She became obsessed with the idea of making it as a pop singer, so much so that she would do anything to see this dream come true. Well, Aretha's desperation drove her into the arms of one of Detroit's baddest boys, Ted White. Although he posed as a music manager, he was actually a pimp. Using the earnings of his working girls, he pushed Aretha's career up and up and up. He saw Aretha, with all her incredible talent, as his ticket to the very top of the showbiz industry. Aretha and Ted White soon got married. However, it was a marriage that was doomed from the start. The trauma of her mom's split from her dad made Aretha determined to make her own union work. As a result, she tolerated so many things that no woman should ever have to go through. Well, as anyone could have predicted, Ted White was quite an unfaithful and abusive husband. Although he got Aretha a record deal, he made her pay for it in such terrible ways. To deal with her marriage problems, Aretha turned toward food and alcohol. Again, she had very poor self-control and could not stop herself from excessive consumption. Whenever things got really bad in the White household, Aretha ran home to her daddy, but there was only so much he could do to protect her. Determined to make her marriage work, Aretha always returned to Ted. When that happened, it would only be a matter of time until his brutality returned. Aretha eventually let go of Ted, but letting go of her alcoholism and gluttony was a much more challenging task. This impacted her career significantly. Consequently, she was not as big of a star as she could have been. Being too drunk to perform, she canceled so many tour dates. Even one time, in a drunken stupor, she fell off a stage and broke her arm during rehearsals. Aretha became the Queen of Soul, but it was a title she had trouble holding onto, especially when Barbra Streisand and Diana Ross, whom she saw as threats, started to rise within the industry. Amidst all this, Aretha still had a very healthy sexual appetite. One of her lovers was Dennis Edwards, lead singer of The Temptations. The passion between the two of them ran red hot for a while. However, it cooled down when Edwards couldn't handle any more of Aretha's divacious personality. In Edwards' words, Aretha legitimately viewed herself as a queen and saw her boyfriends as her servants. Though Edwards did love her, she was too high maintenance for him to handle. Another person Aretha dated was Ken Cunningham. Cunningham, who was Aretha's road manager, was actually one of the few positive male influences in her life. He did his utmost to get Aretha's drinking under control. And do you know how Aretha repaid him? Well, take a good guess. While Aretha was with Ken Cunningham, she continued to see Dennis Edwards. Even after she got pregnant with Cunningham's child, she did not cease her illicit affairs. After she got bored with him, she fell hard for movie star Glynn Turman. She wholeheartedly believed Glynn, who was also an acting coach, would help her become a movie star as well. Aretha tied Glynn up with a marriage. Even so, it did not last long. They split up without her taking significant strides in Hollywood, but that did not kill her desire for the bright lights of the movie business at all. Heck, if anything, it worsened it. With Aretha's career in decline, she picked up her strangest coping mechanism yet. She became completely obsessed with soap operas, so much so that she wanted her life to be as exciting as the melodramas she spent hours watching on television. As a result, she often wrote soap opera scripts in which she was the main character and was courted by several impressive men. With her divacious attitude, rudeness, alcoholism, and gluttony, Aretha Franklin would likely have had a very sad career decline. However, she was saved by one of the most powerful men in the country. Bill Clinton was such a huge fan of Aretha Franklin that he selected her to sing at the Democratic National Convention. This was a huge win for both Aretha's career and her confidence. The association between Bill Clinton and Aretha Franklin was not a one-time thing either. He continued to keep her relevant by inviting her to events, mentioning her name in the press, and championing her music. As to whether there was anything more between Bill and Aretha, who's to say? Even so, it's no secret that Bill Clinton was not exactly the most upstanding of presidents. Other notable men Aretha Franklin dated over her life include Doc Powell and Yumar Deodato. However, her last notable relationship was with William Wilkerson. Wilkerson was a Detroit firefighter and former war veteran. His relationship with Aretha stands out because they were good friends long before they ever became romantically involved. As a matter of fact, Wilkerson had cared for Aretha when she was sick. Like Ken Cunningham, he embodied the qualities of a man who would be able to give her the fairy tale marriage she had always craved. The older Aretha, who had significantly cleaned up her act, flaunted Wilkerson in public. Everyone was convinced they were not long for the altar. Unfortunately, in 2012, right after Aretha announced plans to marry Wilkerson, the engagement was quickly called off. No explanation ever came forth, leaving Aretha's most loyal fans incredibly disappointed. They thought she had finally found the one. Evidently, Aretha, or Wilkerson, thought otherwise. Aretha Franklin died in 2018 at the age of 76. At the time, her wild past was vastly overshadowed by her incredible musical achievements. Even so, the past can never fully be buried. If you enjoyed this video, there's a good chance you'll also enjoy the one showing on your screen right now. Click, enjoy, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you on the next one.